Today, I'm going to talk about my marriage story full of laughter and anger. So please listen to me. My name is Ella. I'm 27 years old. I work in the fashion industry. I met my boyfriend James, who is 5 years older than me, at a local marriage activity party. Why did I go to this party? My friend had just broken up with her boyfriend. She asked me to come with her. I didn't care if I got married or not, so I thought I'd just drink and eat and go home. But then, James approached me. He contacted me as soon as we were connected on social media. When I met him, he praised me highly. I was comfortable with him. I was used to dating cool guys, so his direct reaction was something new for me. And we ended up going out. Well, in short, I was flattered by him. We both lived alone. Soon, we were going back and forth to each other's houses. The more time we spent together, the closer we got. And he began to show little by little his true self. But at that time, I didn't notice that anything he said or did was strange or that something was wrong with his behavior. The one thing that sticks out in my mind is when he was taking a bath, there was an incoming call on his phone. The screen lit up, and when I looked at it, I saw the word Kansas. He came back from his bath. I asked him, "Who is Kansas?" He said,
My boss. I've recently been transferred, so I've forgotten who she is."
He answered with some impatience. She has an unusual name, doesn't she?
"Oh yes, that's right. It's something like, some country name."
I wondered what he was in such a hurry for, but I didn't question it that much, so I didn't pursue it any further. I didn't know that this was a harbinger of terrible things to come. Looking back, other strange things happened too. The day after he stayed at my place, I borrowed his car to go to grocery shopping. His car was easier to maneuver in the supermarket, so we used to use his car. After breakfast, he went back to bed to get a nap because he was tired from working overtime the day before. I decided to go alone. I got into his car and operated the car navigation system to check traffic jams. It showed a history of directions to my house from an unknown location. He said he worked late at the office and came straight to my house. It is almost a straight road from his office to my house. The place where he left according to the car navigation was the opposite direction from his office. But I was carefree. I thought he was checking out the place where he was going to go for business. I took it as a good thing. But there was also a hidden reason behind the incident. We continued our relationship, and he proposed to me. I had no reason to refuse. I was in love with him at the time, so I accepted his proposal, and we were preparing to get married. On our anniversary, 1 year after we started dating, we booked a wedding venue and proceeded with all the arrangements. It wasn't a fancy ceremony, but the preparation for the wedding was still very exciting. The first time I tried on a wedding dress, I was so happy and excited. The guests were only my closest friends and family. My parents, my sister, and a few relatives. James' parents had passed away, so his aunts, uncles, and cousins were going to attend. Preparations were progressing steadily. All we had to do was to wait for the ceremony. But a week before the wedding, he started to say some strange things.
"I'm feeling kind of sick. What if I collapse on the wedding day? The weather forecast is for rain on the day of the wedding. Do you think it's safe to hold the ceremony?"
Honestly, I thought what the hell is he talking about? What the hell is he thinking? If you're not feeling well, take care of yourself. The chapel and the ceremony are both indoors. Rain doesn't matter, right? If you think about the road trip for the attendees, I'd rather have sunshine than rain, of course. but that's not what he's worried about. I let his comments slide. I quietly proceeded with the preparations for the ceremony. And finally, on the day of the wedding, the actual weather betrayed the forecast and we were blessed with clear skies. All the attendees arrived safely. It was a small ceremony with only a few people invited, but I was very happy. It was a nice ceremony and reception. The incident happened at the after party afterward. The after party was attended by my friends from school and colleagues from my current job, and even friends from social media with whom I got closer by talking about fashion. I had a lot of people there. In contrast, his friends were less than half of mine. But he's not from around here. He got transferred by his company, so I thought it was only natural. He took the microphone to greet the start of the after party. He took a deep breath and said loudly,
I'm sorry, I have a wife and child. That's why I can't marry you, Ella.
The room was quiet for a moment, but soon the crowd started to shout in anger. But he told me in no uncertain terms.
I'm sorry. Please forget about this marriage. It never happened. I will return the congratulatory gifts to the people who came to the wedding, and I will pay for the wedding.
He said it just like that. He ran out of the restaurant where the after party was held and never came back. I was surrounded by my friends. They comforted me. They expressed their anger. Some of them even cried for me. Thank you, but don't cry for me. I've asked the restaurant to prepare something delicious for you. Now we should drink and have fun. Let's laugh a lot together. I opened a bottle of champagne with a few of my friends and drank a lot while pouring the champagne. While my friends and I were screaming in desperation, his friends had all disappeared. I mean, the groom said all that stuff and ran off. They couldn't stay here, right? I was convinced like that. But later, it turned out that this wasn't the only reason they left. After the after party, where we laughed a lot and made a lot of noise, I took a cab home by myself. Fortunately, we decided to move into our new house after the wedding, so I could go back to the house I had been living in. We have already signed the contract for the new house we were supposed to live in together, but I need to cancel it. He said we would do the registry of our marriage after the wedding. Maybe it was because he already has a wife. I have to return the congratulatory gift as soon as possible. Who did I leave it with? I had to get in touch with him, so I took my phone. On the screen, he and I had big smiles on our faces. I remember that I had set my wallpaper to a photo of him and me. The lock screen is a picture of our first date. After unlocking the screen, I see a picture of us on our vacation at the beach. I was so happy at that time. As soon as I thought like that, tears filled my eyes. I was finally able to cry when I was alone, whining and crying like a child. My head ached from crying so much, and I began to feel heavy with swollen eyelids. Don't think I'm going to let you get away with this. I will never forgive you. I mumbled in a low voice, with full of anger. After that, my memory was cut off. I must have fallen asleep, as if someone turned my battery off. When I woke up, my head was clear, but my mind was a blur. But I thought it was only natural. I didn't touch my phone for a while, and there was thousands of messages and incoming calls. I first called my parents, who were staying over for the wedding. My parents were informed about the incident of the groom's bombshell via a friend who attended the after party, and they were extremely worried about me. Anyway, I want to reassure everyone I met yesterday. So to those who came to the ceremony and the after party yesterday, I sent a message. I'm okay despite everything that has happened. I have calmed down. I will let you know if there is any further information. After that, I asked my closest friend to come to my house. My best friend knows my personality very well. I wanted to talk to her about what I was going to do. Of course, I'm not going to let that guy get away with this. I won't just ask her for advice on how to harm him more than he already did to me. James' phone was, as expected, disconnected. He must have blocked me or changed his number. First of all, I had to find out whether it was true that he had a wife and a child. I asked my friends who attended the after party. I would like to hire a detective to find out the groom's background. Does anyone have any experience with this kind of things? I sent this kind of message. Then I got a reply from a colleague at my workplace. She got a connection to a detective agency because her friend used it when she got a divorce. I immediately contacted the detective agency and asked them to investigate. It took them less than a week to find out who James was. As a result, he indeed has a wife and a child. Furthermore, he told me his parents were dead, so that's why he called his close relatives to attend the wedding. But actually, his parents are still alive. They live in the near town where his wife lives. I also found out that he came to my city as a temporary postaway from his family, and that he went back to the house where his wife was waiting for him about twice a month. With all this information, I started to make a move. 3 days later, I got a paid day off. First, I went to James' parents' house. They seemed a bit anxious because a young woman, a stranger, came out of the blue to visit. I got down on my knees in front of his parents, who were wary of my presence. Please, I beg you, I want to marry James no matter what. His parents panicked and asked me what has happened. I showed them the wedding photos and explained briefly what had happened. They wanted to hear the full story, so they let me in the house and I told them everything. I told them that I had met him at the marriage activity party and almost got married. How he dropped a bombshell at the after party of the wedding and ran away. As I was telling the story, I felt like a tragic heroine. I was surprised that I even cried, but I used my tears for my acting as a poor woman. After he disappeared at the after party, I couldn't get in touch with him. Somehow, I only found out where his parents lived, so I just had to barge in like this. Where's James now? Where is he? Can I marry him? And then his parents looked at each other and said,
I'm sorry, but James indeed has a wife and a child. I didn't hear about their divorce, so I don't think he can marry you.
I exaggeratedly broke down in tears. After that, I said, I understand. I apologize for my behavior. I give up the marriage with James. I pretended to back out and left his parents' house. I left the wedding photo at his parents' house on purpose. I intentionally left it. I wanted his parents to see the evidence of what James had done. When I left their house, the next step was to call his wife. After greeting her politely, I started to explain. I am a woman living in the neighborhood where James lives now. James and I went out, and we even made a promise to marry. Even though I didn't know he was married, I'm sorry for what I did to you, who is his wife. I revealed everything at once. Now, what is her reaction? Would she think it's a prank call? Or would she panic and get angry? His wife's response was neither of them. She took a deep breath. If that is true what you are saying, I would like to meet you and talk with you face to face. She said that in a clear tone of voice. I met her at a cafe a few hours later. His wife was calm and seemed intelligent. We talked for a few hours, but she was not once distraught during that time. We exchanged our contact information for the future and parted ways. About a month later, she contacted me. I got ready with my parents and went to visit them. I went to the parents' house of James' wife, which was just a few minutes away from the house where James and his family lives. The people who gathered there were his wife and her parents, me and my parents, James and his parents. Their child stayed at home and was not with us. We were taken to the guest room, and as everyone took their seats, the discussion began. A gong rings in my brain to announce the start of the fight. Now let the battle begin. James opened his mouth first after being poked by his father.
I'm sorry that you all gathered like this. I apologize. Ella, I'm sorry I couldn't marry you, but I'm not lying about how much I love you, Ella. I love Ella, who is beautiful and healthy.
Then what am I? His wife asks coldly.
I love you, Kansas, too. You take care of me like a mother. You work as a caregiver. That's why you are good at taking care of me.
While he was talking to his wife, I was reminded of a phone call I saw when we were dating. He took advantage of my misunderstanding and just lied that it was his boss's name, but actually, it was his wife's first name. It was a conversation full of lies. That's so ridiculous. James, let me ask you something. You say you love us both, me and your wife, Kansas. But what if you had to choose between us?
I can't do that. That's why we are in this mess. It's called bigamy, right? I didn't realize that marrying two women would be a crime. I wanted to call off the wedding, but I didn't have the courage. I just got scared and ran away.
You say you didn't realize it? No one would agree to that.
That's enough. I can't stand to see you being like this as my son. Take responsibility for what you did.
He slammed his fist on the table and yelled at him. It was his father.
But how do I take responsibility?
He blurted out pathetically. I stepped forward. I was waiting for this moment. Pay me what you owe me first. The wedding and after-party expenses. Instead of pretending the marriage never happened, you said you'd pay for it, and alimony for the emotional and social damage caused by you. I think it will be at least $3 million in total.
What?
Next, it is Kansas' turn. I want a divorce. Of course, since it's your fault, I will ask you to pay alimony and child support. I will never give up custody.
I don't want that kind of divorce. I don't want to be separated from our child. Besides, if something happens to my parents, who is going to take care of them?
Huh? I and Kansas gave the same reaction. But this is a matter of married couple. It's something that should be said by the parties involved. I gestured for Kansas to go ahead and step back. James, if anything happens to your parents, you take care of them. I'm a caregiver, but I didn't get the qualification to take care of your parents. Even if you say you don't want a divorce, I have proof that you cheated on me. I will definitely ask you to divorce me.
Proof?
In front of him, crying and sputtering, I rolled up my arms and stood up in front of him. I'm the one you cheated on her with. I didn't know I was your cheating partner. There is plenty of evidence that you and I almost got married. Besides, you also had other women besides me.
How did you know?
It wasn't me who found out about the affair with the woman he met through a dating app, but the detective who did the background check on him. The detective was following him to check out his home. It just so happened that he saw him going into a hotel with a woman other than his wife. So I asked him to investigate the affair incidentally. You are so sloppy. You went on dating apps and talked to girls. You lied about being single again. Now that I think about it, you even set your car navigation system to take you from a motel to my place. How could you do such a terrible thing? And then you tell us you love us. Who would believe that? Me smugly with my phone in my hand. I feel like a hero in a movie. He collapsed and mumbled helplessly.
Cheating is just cheating and not something serious. My ex-girlfriend said I could do it as long as I didn't get caught.
That might have been fine with your ex-girlfriend, but it's not the same with me or Kansas. I'm not like that, and neither is she.
Ella and Kansas, you are two very different types. I love you both. I didn't want to break up with one of you.
Unfortunately, we both hate you more than anything in the world. I said it directly and went back to my parents. And once again, I stood in line with my parents to apologize for both to James and Kansas' parents. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused. I was planning to get married to James. I was very shocked by what happened. But now that you've invited me here, I could say everything I wanted to say to him. I will ask my lawyer to take care of all the alimony matters. I don't think I will see you all again. Even though I didn't know, I'm so sorry for the damage I've done to you and your relationship. I'm truly sorry. And because I didn't have to be there when they discussed their divorce, my parents and I left them alone. When I heard his bombshell at the after party, I felt so gloomy that I thought it was the end of the world. But at this moment, I was in a sunny mood like a blue sky after a typhoon. I took out my phone and sent a message to all the members of the after party. A lot has happened, but it's all over now. The sky is clear. I'm fine. Let's have another drink together soon. I will give you the details then. So, what happened to that lousy guy? He paid me for everything. Maybe his parents took over for him. My best friend and I are relaxing in a room at a luxurious hotel, glasses of wine in hand. We are going on a little getaway when it's all over. That is what she promised me during that incident. I agreed to the plan. Hey Ella, that's not what I meant. I've heard before that you received money from that man. I mean, that guy. Didn't he suffer some kind of punishment or something? I heard he's being hurt enough to deserve what he's done. My friend said with a twinkle in her eye. Tell me more. I told her what I knew. The cost of the wedding, the alimony to me, and the alimony to his wife after their divorce was finalized, and child support. That alone would be quite a lot of money. Plus, he had debts. All of the groom's relatives and friends who came to the ceremony and the after party were all paid agents. Because of the number of people who attended, the bill from the agency was quite a lot. He couldn't pay it with his savings, so he borrowed money from a bank. The address of his parents' house was changed to a rental apartment. Kansas said he must have sold the parents' house to pay off the debt. Wow, that guy's parents went through a disaster. True, but they made sure they get back the money he owes them. And they're not going to have any other kind of a relationship with him. I heard they are going to cut off all ties with him. And how is he doing at work? I heard he is still working at the same workplace. It's hard to hide what has happened because it was such a big incident. People at his work know about everything, so I heard it's not very comfortable. My best friend smiled and said she's relieved that he got that punishment. I agreed with her. I laughed, I got mad, I got angry. It's been a really busy few months. I've had a lot of hard times being stuck with a jerk, but more than that, I had a lot of support from my parents. I've had a lot of encouragement and help from so many people. No matter what happened, I realized that I'm not alone. I don't know if I will ever want to get married again, or if any bad things will happen again, but I'm sure I will be fine. I will smile and do well tomorrow.
Your mother passed away? So? Haven't I told you last week that I got a big gathering with relatives here today? I was shocked by what my mother-in-law said. Well, I'm in the middle of her funeral right now. None of my business. Get here ASAP. I'm having once-a-year party, and I'm short-handed here. I was too hurt that I almost burst into tears. My mother passed away at a young age of 53. My mother-in-law was trying to pull me away from saying my last goodbyes. Her reason was just for the once-a-year party. But her voice on the phone sounded serious, like she hadn't said anything wrong. If I didn't comply with her, I shuddered to think what kind of harassment awaited me in the future. Suddenly, I'm on my way. I replied in a trembling voice and let my tears flow freely. My name is Wendy, 27 years old. My husband Paul and I just got married this year. He is a ceramic designer at a tableware brand. It was just a coincidence that he and I, who was an anatomy assistant, crossed the path. Paul happened to be free and brought a document that normally passed through the finance department to the admin office. That's how we met the first time. He is from a family of artists. His father, Tom, is a painter, and his sister and brother also work in an art-related field. I wondered if I would fit in well with such a family without having much of an artistic sense, but they welcomed me warmly. Well, not all of them to be exact. There is one person who is displeased with me for suddenly appearing and settling with her son. The person with resentment is Debbie, my mother-in-law. She's been especially fond of Paul, who is the most talented among her children. When he was still at university, she tried to control his future by interfering with his job search and even his dating life. She even tried to set up a marriage while he was still a student, which is hardcore. He thought she was a nuisance, so he rejected all her suggestions, get a job on his own, and decided to marry me. It's kind of a defense against his mother. Given that, it's not difficult to imagine that she loathes me. Every time she and I meet, you came too, wearing another out of fashion. I'm ashamed to see my daughter-in-law walking around in public, looking like that. Oh God, Wendy, what makes you think you can just sit there and do nothing? She would make a sarcastic remark after another as much. If I try to help as I told, she complains about my every move and makes me feel so small. Fortunately, Paul and the rest of the family don't just watch it happen. My mom's treatment of you, it's so terrible. I'm going to the upcoming memorial services by myself. Whatever she says, I'll just make up something. I'm very sorry about my wife. She still carries the resentment about not being able to control Paul. I'll scold her too. But if she doesn't change, don't worry about coming here. Paul and my father-in-law Tom both look out for me and make arrangements so that she and I would have a little contact as possible. Minimal visits to in-laws. When I'm there, Paul never leaves my side to protect me from Debbie's sarcasm. From her point of view, that adds more oil to the fire. But since she's been warned by Tom and Paul, she couldn't say much to me. Seriously, you were so good at fooling Paul and Tom. So far, I've been able to escape her sarcastic attack with only a little remark. How's it going, honey? All good here. How about you? Not overworked? Yeah. I'm quite busy, but what to do? I miss you and your home cooking. If you work hard, you'll be rewarded with whatever you want to eat upon your return. It's already at night there? Have a good rest and be ready for tomorrow. Thanks. I'll go sleep now. I sighed as I hang up the international call. Paul's business trip abroad was suddenly decided last week. He was told that the designer had to supervise the work at a manufacturing plant overseas. It wasn't unusual for him, but it was the first time decided so suddenly that preparations were hectic. He normally rented a portable Wi-Fi or similar if he was going to be on a long business trip. But this time, he was too rushed to get it done at the last minute. Until it was ready over there, the only time to contact him was when he had Wi-Fi in the hotel room. I was supposed to be alone for a while, so I planned to stretch my wings and visit my parents for the first time in a long time. Then my phone I just put away rang. Wondering if it was Paul again, I saw a strange number on the screen. Even though I was reluctant, I answered the call. My mother? It was from the hospital where my mother was taken to after the car accident. I can't remember exactly what happened after the call. When I arrived at the hospital in a rush, my mother was lying in the bed with so many tubes hooked on the machines. The doctors tried everything they could, but she passed away on the night of the accident. She had my brother and me at a young age, and after my father passed away, she raised us alone. She was only 53 years old. My older brother, who got there late, fell down on the floor in tears after seeing her corpse. The driver of the other vehicle got down on the floor and apologized frantically. No matter how much he did, she wasn't going to come back. I couldn't give him my forgiveness then, and just watched him in silence. After all the paperwork was done, my brother decided to be the chief mourner. She had never been a fan of big events in her life, so we thought she wouldn't have liked a grand funeral. We only called close relatives and friends and arranged a humble farewell. Of course, I called Paul right away. Oh no! What to do? I'll arrange my return. Don't worry, my brother is taking care of things. If you come back now, it'll create a big dent in your work. My mom respected your work, so she won't be happy if you did that. Well, okay. She was so kind to me. I wish I could have been there to say my farewell. Anyway, I'll try to get my work done ASAP and come home sooner. Okay, hon. Don't push yourself too hard. He and my mother had a good relationship. I could hear him fighting back tears on the other end of the phone, and I almost cried along. The wake and the ceremony went smoothly, and the burial was to be done next. My brother and I were both slumped with so many things to take care of. We didn't even have time to just mourn. My mother's coffin was placed in a hearse, and we were waiting for the procession to begin. Then I realized that my phone in my bag had numerous missed calls. I thought those were from my mother's friends, as I've already received many. Although I was fortunate to know there were so many people who cared about her. It was difficult to answer to all once the ceremony started. I decided to take the call, which just came in, and turn off my phone afterward. I ran to the side of the church and answered my phone. Yes, this is Wendy. Hi, Wendy. What are you up to? The deafening high-pitched voice hurt my brain. I pulled my phone away from my ear and checked the screen. There it was. The name of my mother-in-law. I had Paul inform his family about my mother. Tom had a family engagement, so he didn't come to the ceremony. Instead, he attended the wake the day before. Then I remembered he came along without Debbie. I wasn't surprised, as I expected her not to show up to the funeral of the mother of her resentful daughter-in-law. What am I up to? I'm in the middle of my mother's funeral. Oh, right. I think Tom mentioned something about it. By the way, I'm short-handed over here. Come and help me ASAP. Come over now? I've told you there is a big gathering of my family today before. Did you think you didn't need to join because Paul was away? Wishful thinking. I tried hard to explain the situation, but she was determined to have me there. In the end, she asserted, "So what if your mother's dead? You got more important things to do here. Don't you play a heroine of the tragedy." She stabbed my heart with such force. It was the very last moment of funeral with my mother. But if I didn't comply with her, I shuddered to think what kind of harassment awaited me in the future. I told my brother that I had some errands to run and drove off in a car. Fortunately, the in-laws' house wasn't so far from the church. I didn't even try to wipe my tears off and just maneuvered the handle. When I entered the in-laws' house, all the relatives were startled. No wonder, as I was in a plain black dress suit in a group of the cheerfully dressed crowd, and anyone could tell that I had been crying. Debbie rushed over to me, not caring everyone was watching, and she spoke in a loud voice. "Finally, you're here. It's been hectic without enough help. At such an important time like this, making excuses about your family and stuff. I wonder if you have any sense of being a daughter-in-law of this family. In a situation like mine, who cared about your party? Wendy?" With no energy to argue, I was about to be dragged into the kitchen by Debbie. But I stopped when I was called from behind. I turned around to see one of the relatives with whom Paul had some business interactions, looking at me with a surprised look on his face. He seemed to find it hard to believe that I was there. "Why are you here?" Before I could answer him, Debbie quickly intervened. "I called her up in a hurry because there weren't enough people in the kitchen." Wendy tried to bail out with the excuse of some family stuff, even though everyone has gathered here. How dare she make up a lie in front of me? "But your mother is Heather Williams, right?" "Yes, right. My company informed me that she passed away, and there is a funeral today. I was told that the outsiders weren't allowed to attend, but prepare a condolence message. I am truly sorry for your loss. This happened so suddenly." "Thank you." Debbie looked puzzled at the exchange between me and the relative. She seemed to be totally at loss. The relative gave me a pat on my shoulder, scowled at her. "Debbie, dragging out a person who just lost her mother like this is indeed heartless," he sternly scolded her. Suddenly yelled at. She didn't seem to have a grip on reality and looked around pleadingly with blinking eyes. But all the relatives around us seemed to have known about my mother's obituary and gave her a cold stares. "But wait, why?" Why do you all know about her mother's passing? Of course, the death of the famous potter is the top news in the industry. My mother had made a name for herself as a potter for several years. It was originally one of the hobbies she took up when my brother and I became independent, but she quickly developed the talent for it. She became an up-and-coming craft artist whose name was known in the industry. Paul, who works for a tableware brand, and Tom, who was a painter, knew about and interacted with her. But Debbie was the only one who wasn't aware of it. In any way, it was easy to find out my mother was a potter with a click of a search. And I wasn't intentionally hiding the fact. It was just that she had no interest in me and never tried to get to know me. Most of the relatives from Tom's artsy family side were also involved in the art scene. There was even a few of them who offered to attend the funeral, but I had to turn them down for the reason being a closed ceremony. You didn't know that Wendy was the daughter of Heather, did you? In any case, you were an awful mother-in-law. She's clearly grieving. Yet you forced her to come to this meaningless gathering. The buzzing relatives were all judgmental towards Debbie. No, I didn't mean. Debbie looked flustered. Tried to say something in her defense, but her words were all jumbled and incomprehensible. Hearing the commotion, Tom rushed towards us through the crowd. He looked startled at the sight of me, and then immediately glared at Debbie. Debbie, what have you done? No, Tom, I didn't. Wendy. Tom turned to me, ignoring Debbie's mumble, and said, You better go back to the funeral now. I am so sorry, Wendy. She troubled you at a difficult time. He gave me a warm hug and prompted me to leave. I hastily walked out of the house toward my car. No, this is not what you think. Please, listen. I heard Debbie's desperate scream coming out of the house, but I could care less at that point. I drove as fast as I could to the ceremony and was able to see my mother's coffin lowered into the ground. My brother was a little upset that I had left him alone to deal with everything, but I told him what really happened. What a pain in the butt. He was sympathetic and even seemed to be holding back his anger. A few days after the burial, Paul was able to finish his work and returned. We went to the gravesite to pray together. He deeply mourned my mother's passing, saying that he had respected her craftsmanship even before we met. Since the incident, Tom demanded a divorce from Debbie. He had been troubled by her, who tended to be vain and out of control, just because she was a wife of a famous artist. When he was shown the insane behavior of pulling me out of a funeral to help at her party, he became completely disgusted with her. Debbie, who quit her job after marrying Tom and had been living a comfortable life as a housewife, is baffled and is resisting the divorce. Paul says if it went to trial, she would have no chance. Debbie had spent a large sum of Tom's saving in vain, and he has kept all the bank settlements as proof. I wonder if she would be able to make ends meet on her own after living a comfortable life as a housewife. But I remind myself that there is no need for me to worry about her. Our plan, my sister and brother are planning to move, so my mom won't come and bother them. Wow, seriously? She's been a pain in the neck to everyone in our family. By the way, hon, if you don't mind, shall we move too? During the business trip, I was asked to work there. You mean in Paris? Yeah. I know it might be a lot of trouble for you, but I'm astounded by the sudden, such a big suggestion. Relocating in Paris. It doesn't sound real to me. I have my mother's grave to take care of, and of course my work. So it's hard to decide right now, but sure, if you want to give it a try, I'll go along with you. I want to trust the person next to me. If my mother was here, she would push my back and say, "You go and take care of him." At his side. New life in a new environment. With this thought, I feel my gaze naturally look straight ahead. My mother's death was painful, and the series of events that followed was like a storm. By overcoming them, I will walk forward with Paul at my side. It was a beautiful, calm day. My sweet daughter holding my hand and looking up at me with a smile. My loving husband is next to me. I was enjoying a very happy time until I met that man.
Hey, long time no see.
Long time. Ian, my ex-husband, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, approached us with a nasty smile on his face.
Did you have a baby? An old woman like you? I wouldn't be a mother if I were your age.
It's none of your business. Leave me alone. I tried to walk away and move on, but my ex-husband stood in front of me. He kept talking, his eyes licking me from head to toe. And then, as if he couldn't take it anymore, he started to laugh.
You are old. You know that? How disgusting. Hey, you're her new husband? You lose your life if you don't think about what's good and bad for you. I can't believe you married this old hag.
The words with my ex-husband never seemed to stop. I clenched my fist when I couldn't take it anymore. I was stopped by my husband, Wesley, who was standing next to me, smiling calmly.
Ian, am I right? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. I learned a lot, and you were absolutely right.
My name is Quinn. I met and married my ex-husband Ian at the company I was working for at the time. Ian was a section manager, and he was my subordinate. After we got married, I wanted to have children right away. However, I could not have a child at the age of 34. So, I decided to have an infertility treatment. After a long period of time, I was 38 years old when I finally got pregnant. I was really happy when I found out that I was going to be a mother. It was my first pregnancy, and I will give birth at an advantaged age. In addition, I had to work and raise a child at the same time. I had no end of worries. But more than that, the joy and happiness of having the child I have dreamed of for so long in my belly was greater. I was filled with anticipation that I was going to make a happy family with my child and Ian. But Ian was not so sure. Fertility treatment is expensive. I spent most of my pre-marriage savings on treatment. On top of that, the side effects tended to make me physically ill. It became difficult for me to do the same amount of work as before I got married. So I decided to change my job. After changing my job, my salary dropped to half of what it had been before. I was able to work less and concentrate on my fertility treatment with peace of mind. However, Ian had grown tired of me. The truth was, Ian seemed to like me because I worked hard and made good money. At the time, there was no sign of marriage for me, and I was on the road to success with my work. He took notice of my good earning ability, and that was the reason he married me. And yet, after we married, I said I wanted to have a baby. Ian didn't forgive me for changing jobs so easily and undergoing expensive fertility treatment. So he slapped divorce papers on me and left me. I would stand for a while at how easily our marriage ended. But I had to be strong for the sake of this child I was carrying in my belly. I had to raise her well on my own. I explained the situation to the company and worked my butt off. With the help of my parents, I managed to give birth to my child. When I finally held my baby girl in my arms, I felt like the happiest in the world. I couldn't stop crying with happiness. But the one who was even happier than I was my new husband, Wesley. I met Wesley as a business partner at my former company. At that time, we had a good relationship as business partners. He was very disappointed when I resigned. After a while, we met again as business partner at my current company. He knew about my situation and was very kind and concerned about me. Wesley and I had always thought well of each other. It didn't take long for us to become close in our private life as well. Before the birth of my child, I remarried Wesley. And for the next few years, I was very happy. Wesley loved my daughter Ruby very much, even though she was not his own child. He takes care of Ruby to the point of overprotectiveness. After giving birth, when I became ill, he told me not to push myself too hard. He took care of the housework and Ruby almost by himself. I knew Wesley truly cared about me and Ruby. One day, we went for a walk in the park nearby. The weather was nice and Ruby fell asleep right after we got to the park. Then I saw a familiar figure walking ahead of me. I quickly took Wesley by the arm and tried to go the other way. But it was too late. The person who seemed to have noticed me looked at Wesley and Ruby with a surprised expression on his face. He then approached us with a smirk and a nasty smile on his face.
Long time no see.
Ian, long time.
Did you have a baby?
Yeah. You got a problem with that?
No. I'm just wondering, how could an old woman like you be a mother, you know?
It's none of your business. Leave us alone. Ian stands in front of me as I try to avoid him and move on. After moving his gaze to lick me from head to toe, as if he couldn't stand it any longer, Ian started laughing.
You are too old to be a mother. You know that? It's disgusting.
Ian's words never seemed to stop, and he looked into the stroller.
Your kid? She's ugly. Just like you.
Please, don't you dare say one more word.
Or,
if it was just about me, I could put up with it. But I couldn't take it anymore when someone makes fun of my child. Ian narrowed his eyes in amusement as I took a step forward. Before I could open my mouth, he quickly shifted his gaze to the side. Ian was looking at Wesley, who was right beside me.
I can't believe anyone would marry this old hag. And she's got a kid with someone else?
Really? Stop it! It's got nothing to do with you.
Well,
Quinn, you made a lot of money. That's all you were ever worth. Without money, there's no reason you want to be with Quinn, you know? My ex-husband is approaching Wesley and is smiling like a devil. In this world, everything is about profit and loss, brother. Fools who can't think in terms of profit and loss would not survive. Just like Quinn here. Quit her job to have a child. Those who don't understand profit and loss will just fail. You'd better watch out too, Mr. New Husband. Maybe you were the kind of person who doesn't understand profit and loss when you married Quinn. Ian's loud laughter echoes in the peaceful park. He made fun of not only me, but also my child and Wesley. I couldn't stand it anymore, and I clenched my fist and was about to approach my ex-husband. Then Wesley, who had been silently watching over the situation, restrained me. Quinn, wait. Calm down. Wesley, I can't stay silent after being told something like that. I understand how you feel, but violence is not acceptable. Wesley smiled at me, and I lowered my fist. Quinn, do you know this gentleman? He used to be one of my subordinates at the company I worked for. I didn't dare tell him that he was my ex-husband. I don't even want to say that I once married this horrible person. Wesley already seemed to know that Ian was my ex-husband without me having to tell him. He smiled deeply and nodded in understanding. So it was you. Quinn, take care of Ruby for me, okay? Wesley said so and handed the stroller to me. And then Wesley stepped forward to protect us from my ex-husband. He looked straight at Ian with a soft smile on his face as usual. Ian, am I right? Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. It is true the profit and loss are very important, not only financially, but also in terms of the people involved. Sometimes it's better to think in terms of profit and loss. What you said is very reasonable and important. Well, you're not as stupid as I thought you were. Then you shouldn't be with Quinn. You know better. My ex-husband glanced at me. He was grinning more than ever. He put his hands around Wesley's in a friendly manner, as if he thought Wesley was on his side. Wesley continues his words while brushed Ian's hands away. You know, my father owns a business. And in business, it is very important to calculate profit and loss. That's why I'll talk to my father about what you said today, Ian. Is your father a present? If you want, I can talk to him directly. Ian's eyes lit up. It's obvious he's trying to take advantage of it. He still likes money and titles. How could he act so differently with someone he just made fun of? I was beyond amazed. I know you're probably busy, Ian, so I'll let my father know. I'm sure my father will be in touch with you soon. Well then, I'll leave you alone for today. With that, Wesley took Ruby and me and started to walk away. As we passed each other, Ian looked down at me. I felt a little pity for Ian. Wesley's idea of telling his father was not as good as Ian imagined it would be. I rather admire his naiveness to take it all as a good thing. I am sure my ex-husband will be called out of his office soon. Ian, who took Wesley's words as meaning what he said, didn't notice anything. Wesley's father is the president of a company that is an important business partner of the company Ian works for. Wesley was out of his father's company because he was now gaining experience as a working adult at another company. That's probably why Ian didn't know about Wesley. I also learned about Wesley just before we got married. Wesley's parents have been really good to me. When they found out that I was pregnant with my ex-husband's child, they didn't say anything to reject me. They supported me when I was struggling to take care of my first child. Ruby is very attached to my parents-in-law, and it's so lovely to see them all playing together. If my father-in-law had heard what my ex-husband said today, he would be in a big trouble. Ian actually went to work the next day and was called out by his furious boss. The president of the important business partner complained to him by name. This president was, of course, my father-in-law. My father-in-law, who knew the circumstances of our divorce, was furious. He made a phone call to Ian's boss and told him about his bad attitude and how important it was to educate his employees. My son told me that he was told by one of your employees about the importance of profit and loss. You should think carefully about how much profit or loss you could make by one person's mistake. When Ian's boss asked him what was going on, he finally understood the situation and called me. Hello? Quinn, I'm sorry. What is it now? An apology? I was taken aback by the apology I heard before I answered. I knew he would call me sooner or later, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. He must have been in a great hurry, because he kept apologizing over and over again. I'm really sorry. Please, forgive me. Forgive? After you made fun of us like that? I thought to myself. What's wrong? Did you hear from my father-in-law? I heard him choking on my sarcasm on the other side of the phone. I guess he's got your kind advice, you know? I'm really sorry. I apologize. I'd like you to let me apologize to your current husband and the president in person. Did your boss tell you to apologize? Yes. I was told not to return to the company until I apologize in person and get your forgiveness. Please, help me. We were married once. Please. Quit it. You've only seen me as someone who earns good money, right? You're getting carried away now. And you told me it was all about profit and loss. For me, it's a loss to keep you near my husband and my father-in-law. Talking to you who made fun of my daughter and my husband, it's nothing but a loss to me. So this phone call is such a waste of time for me. If you understand, don't call me again. No. I hung up the phone without hearing Ian's last words. He had said a lot of horrible things to me, and I still didn't have enough to say. But at least I feel a little better. My ex-husband must be panicking right now. After a while, bad reputation spread throughout the industry. To begin with, my ex-husband had always had a tendency to look down on others and was not a man with a good reputation. When we worked together, I often had to clean up his mess. But after I quit my job, there was no one to cover up his mess. Frustration with Ian gradually built up both inside and outside the company. And then this happened. Apparently, Ian's boss was mad at him because my father-in-law's company was one of their biggest clients. In the end, Ian quit his job because he couldn't stay at the company. He is having a hard time finding a new job. I received a long email from Ian asking me to introduce him to a new job. In one of the emails, he wrote something like, "I know I said some terrible things, but I really love you, Quinn." How disgusting. Rumor has it that after he divorced me, he started dating a very young woman. But Ian had lost his job and could not seem to find another job. So she left him. You get what you deserve. He kept sending me emails saying, "I want you to help me because it's your fault that I'm in this pitiful situation." Or, "You should help me because I still love you." Well, it's a very definition of karmic retribution. I've been ignoring all the emails, but the frequency of them has been increasing lately, so I'm thinking of blocking them. I'm still living happily with my loving husband Wesley and my daughter Ruby. Recently, Ruby had started to talk, and I can't take my eyes off of her. Ruby is growing up so fast. I, Wesley, and my in-laws are very much in love with her. I would like to keep this family happy forever. Call an ambulance. Hurry up, you moron. My husband, who always rubbed me the wrong way, collapsed on the floor in a greasy sweat. The paramedics arrived immediately. They quickly checked my husband's condition and put him on a stretcher. Then they said to me, "Are you his wife, aren't you? Could you come with us to the hospital?" My husband was put on the stretcher and looked at me with clinging eyes. I looked him right in the eye. "No, I will not." I said that firmly with no hesitation. "What?" My husband's voice came out as if he had lost his mind. "This man is a stranger, so I am not coming." "What?" "Please, take care of the rest." "Wait, Lydia! Wait!" I then confronted my husband with something I had been carrying in my pocket for the past few days. The moment he saw it, his face turned even paler. "How dare you treat me like a slave all these years? This is my revenge. I will never forgive you." My name is Lydia. I'm a 36-year-old housewife. I live in a rented apartment with my husband Caleb. I was introduced to Caleb by a colleague at work when I was still working as a full-time employee. My colleague had a lot of friends, and I was often invited to parties. I am more of an introvert and I like to watch movies or cook by myself. I was not comfortable with large group activities, so I kept turning them down. One time, a colleague invited me to come to a barbecue with his friends. At first, I refused as usual, but my colleague insisted and I ended up participating. On the day of the barbecue, there were just so many people there. One of them was Caleb, who later became my husband. I was having a drink at a little distance from the group of people who were having a good time. Then, a colleague of mine came with Caleb. According to my colleague, he wanted to let us meet each other for the simple reason that we seemed to have similar interests. I was surprised at the suddenness, but Caleb started talking to me. He was nicely tanned and was clearly an outdoorsy type. When I actually talked to him, I found him to be sociable and humorous. I had thought that Caleb and I, who prefer to be alone and are indoor people, would not get along. But as we talked, we found out that we had common interests, just as my colleague had said, and we hit it off right away. We exchanged contact information on the spot, and we even made plans to meet up on our next day off. We went out for dinner and shopping several times, and we ended up dating. After several years of dating, Caleb proposed to me and we got married. Caleb had always been kind to me, even before we started dating. He was the ideal man to take me out of my indoor lifestyle. That didn't change after we got married. But over the past few years, he started to do and say things that made me feel a little uncomfortable. I quit my job and became a housewife because Caleb himself wanted me to. However, he often makes sarcastic remarks about it. For example, when I got sick and was late cooking dinner, "I'm home, Lydia." "Hey, why my dinner isn't ready yet?"
Hi, sorry, I was sick today. I had a rest earlier and I couldn't get up. Can you go take a bath first?
Huh? What's that? You are a housewife. You should at least take care of the meal. Caleb never worried about my health, which made me very sad. Another time,
Hey, Caleb, there is a reunion coming up in my hometown. I'll finish my chores. So, can I go?
suit yourself. Well, being a stay-at-home wife is great, you know. I envy you, Lydia. You get to play around with the money your husband makes. He's usually so nice to me, carrying my purse and bringing me flowers after work. But sometimes he acts like a jerk. I even thought that maybe he wanted me to work. So I suggested that I take a part-time job. But Caleb insisted that was not the case. In the end, I was still a full-time housewife. One day, one of Caleb's relatives called me out of the blue. I picked up the phone, feeling a little defensive. The relative on the other end of the line called my name in a panic. Caleb's mother has collapsed. I froze for a moment at the unexpected words. According to my relative, she had gone to visit my mother-in-law a few hours earlier. She found my mother-in-law lying in the yard. She called an ambulance, which rushed to the scene and took my mother-in-law to a general hospital. I prepared myself in a panic and ran out of the house. When I arrived at the hospital, I was told that her condition was still too unpredictable. As we were talking about this, Caleb came running in, out of breath. We moved to the hospital room to check on my mother-in-law. Sleeping in bed, my mother-in-law's body was covered with various tubes and it was painful to watch.
Mom!
My husband called out to her, but of course, she did not respond. Caleb stayed in the hospital room for the rest of the day, and I decided to go home and get everything I needed for the hospital stay. After a while, my mother-in-law recovered enough to be able to sit up by herself. However, it is difficult to do anything without someone's help.
I'm glad she's able to get up.
I wonder if she will be able to walk again if she continued to do her physical therapy. When my mother-in-law's discharge date was approaching next week, I said this to Caleb. Then, he started to say something I didn't understand. Oh yeah. Are you ready? We'll be leaving this house next week, so you'd better start packing our stuff. I couldn't understand what he meant. Caleb seemed annoyed, as if he didn't like my reaction. We don't need this house, since we are going to live with my mom at my parents' house. You're still as damn as ever, aren't you? Does that mean I'm going to live with my mother-in-law after she gets out of the hospital? I never heard anything about that. What? Did you decide to move in together without talking to me? Have you already canceled the lease on this house?
When I said that, my husband became even more grumpy.
Of course. I've already canceled the lease. It's the right thing for us to do as a family. To live together and help her. Don't tell me you don't want to live with her. Do you? I'm the one who makes her living. So I won't accept any complaints.
He said so and went back to his room with deliberate footsteps. I never thought that Caleb would take such a hard-line approach. I can't believe he's canceling the lease on this apartment. I have no choice but to move out. I know he's worried about his mother, but this is too much. I sighed deeply. A few days passed, and suddenly I was living with my mother-in-law. I had never been a caregiver before, so everything was new to me. I had to spend most of my day feeding, bathing, and toileting for my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law didn't want me to take care of her, and she hardly communicated with me. Furthermore, when I tried to talk to her, she would hide in bed saying she was in pain. When my mother-in-law was healthy, we didn't have a bad relationship. In fact, we sometimes exchanged the delicious-looking snacks we found at the department store. Perhaps she was too frail to care for others. On the other hand, my husband Caleb, who had forced us to move in together, rarely came home. After work, he would go out for drinks and come home in the morning. Even on his days off, he would find some reason to go out. When he comes home, all he does is play video games in his room. I decided to talk to Caleb while he was playing games. I know you can't avoid working overtime or drinking with your colleagues, but can't you at least help me take care of your mother when you're at home? Or I would like you to help me with the housework. I said this, and Caleb replied without looking away from the screen.
What are you being so naive? Housework and caregiving are both your jobs. I'm tired from working, you know. Oh, I'm almost out of coffee. Go make me some. And clean this room, okay? And take these to the dry cleaner. I need them by Wednesday.
My husband spoke one-sidedly and threw his work clothes at me. This time, I was annoyed and retorted, "That's enough! I've been doing housework and taking care of your mother every day for the past month without a break. Why can't you at least help me a little?" Caleb then slams the game controller down on the desk and stands up with a mighty thud.
How dare you talk to me like that? Who do you think you owe your livelihood to? If you have a problem with me, then get out. Come on, get your shit together and get out. Well, I feel sorry for my mom. She's going to be left alone without anyone to take care of her.
That being said, I couldn't say a word. It's true, I only have a little money saved up, and I can't leave my mother-in-law who can't do anything for herself. I held back, picked up his suit, and left the room. After about 6 months of such a difficult life, my mother-in-law suddenly passed away. I woke up in the morning and went to check on her like I always do. But that day, she was no longer breathing. I called an ambulance and took her to the hospital, but it was too late. Caleb was in tears and sad. I don't know why, but I couldn't cry. I felt cold when I saw Caleb, crying without hesitation. I thought to myself, you didn't do anything to help her. And when I realized that I don't have to take care of her anymore, I felt a sense of relief. I felt guilty for feeling that way. Time passed so quickly. After the wake and funeral, I suddenly realized that 2 weeks had passed since my mother-in-law was gone. It's time to organize her belongings. After my husband left for work, I started cleaning my mother-in-law's room. I put her favorite clothes and accessories into the cardboard boxes, one after another. But there wasn't many, so the work was over soon. Next, I opened the cabinet by my mother-in-law's bedside. There was almost nothing in it, but there was a big can on the bottom shelf. I thought I had seen it somewhere before, and it was a can of assorted sweets I had given her when she was still in good health. I wondered why it was there. I opened the lid of the can. There was a letter inside. When I picked up the envelope, I found the words, "Dear Lydia," on it. I hurriedly opened it and looked inside. In trembling letters, there was a message for me. "Lydia, I am sorry for making you take care of me. I was ashamed of myself for forcing you to work for me every day. I was also ashamed of my son, Caleb. I know how bad he was to you. Lydia, you should leave him and live your life the way you want." My mother-in-law knew everything. She knew that her son was being selfish and that I was suffering from it. At the end of the letter, she wrote, "I am glad that I was able to spend the last days of my life with you, Lydia. Thank you." At that moment, I cried for the first time since my mother-in-law passed away. It was as if everything I had been holding back was flowing out of me. I cried and cried until my tears ran dry. And then I made up my mind. I would divorce my husband. 10 days has passed since I found a letter from my mother-in-law. My husband is still treating me like a slave. "Lydia, I'm missing one of my socks. Where is it? Oh, and take my car to the car wash today. You've got nothing to do, right?" He's going out with his colleagues for golfing today. I guess he's completely forgotten about it. But today is our wedding anniversary. Well, I don't even care about it anymore. What are you going to do while I'm golfing? You can't just sit around, you know? You have to prepare dinner, clean my room, clean the bathroom. You have a lot to do. His arrogance left me speechless. Hey, you hear me? Bring me my sock and a jacket. Hurry up, or I'll be late. At the moment, Caleb fell to the floor, clutching his stomach. He was in pain and sweating. He told me to call an ambulance as if he was trying to squeeze out the words. I froze at the suddenness of the situation, and my husband yelled at me. "Hurry up, you moron! You're really useless. Can't you even call an ambulance?" Hearing these words, I became strangely calm. Then I called 911. And within minutes, an ambulance arrived with paramedics. The paramedics quickly assessed Caleb's condition and placed him on a stretcher. As they put him on a stretcher, Anne said to me, "You are his wife, aren't you? Would you come with us to the hospital?" Caleb looked at me with pleading eyes as he was placed on the stretcher. I looked him right in the eye and said, "No, I will not." I said that firmly with no hesitation. "What?
Caleb's voice came out as if he had lost his mind. This man is a stranger. So, I am not coming. Please take care of the rest. Then, I confronted Caleb with something I had been carrying in my pocket for the past few days. It was the divorce papers that I was forced to sign when we had a fight a while ago. My husband had always told me that if I disobeyed him, he would serve me with the divorce papers. Caleb tried to snatch the divorce papers from me, but he can't seem to move due to the pain. So he has to lean back on the stretcher without any efforts. Excuse me, but please, leave now. As I said this, the paramedics finally took my husband away. In the ambulance, he must have been looked as a poor husband whose wife has given him a divorce. He should be embarrassed. I watched the ambulance leave and then left the house. It took a long time, but the divorce papers were accepted, and the divorce was officially finalized. While Caleb was in the hospital for a week, I was busy packing my belongings and sending them to my parents' house. Then one day, I ran into Caleb when I was at the grocery store. Lydia, please don't do this to me. You love me, don't you? Please, don't leave me. I admit I've made some mistakes. You listened to me no matter what I said. So I just got carried away. The overbearing attitude he had a few months ago, it's gone, and he looks completely pathetic.
What are you talking about?
The divorce is already finalized. It's too late for you to act so fragile. Go ahead. Live your life as you please. He didn't really think that I was going to divorce him, and he looked quite shocked. His hands were shaking and his face was turning pale.
Well, that's that then. Bye.
It had been 6 months since Caleb and I had divorced. Caleb had once visited my parents' house. He had been ringing the intercom at my parents' house and calling out my name so loudly that I had no choice but to see him. Sure enough, he wanted me to get back together with him. When I kept quiet, he began to reveal his current lifestyle to me. He can't cook because he has forced me to do all the housework. He eats only TV dinners or eats out. He has gained 10 pounds since the divorce. It's true that he put a lot of fat on his face and stomach that you can see at a glance. In addition, he doesn't seem to understand how to do laundry. The shirts he wears are wrinkled and smell weird, making him look even filthy. I finally realized how great you have done, Lydia. If I don't do something, the people at the company won't like me. Caleb said so and started sobbing. The cheap tears. In other words, he wants to treat me like a servant again. There is no way I'm going back to that. No, never. If you make any more noise, I'll call the police. I treated him like he was a stranger. Then, Caleb started to be afraid of the words police and left the house crying. I'm sure he wouldn't get involved anymore. I hope so. My ex-husband seemed to be leading a very inconvenient life. On the other hand, I was leading a fairly comfortable life. For a while, I was staying at my parents' house, but now I rent a small apartment and live alone. My standard of living is much lower than when I lived with my ex-husband. But I still like this life, that I can have my own time. I thought it would be difficult to get another job at my age,
But a friend of mine happened to have a friend who retired, and I was able to get a job to take her place. I feel so happy to be able to spend time and money only on myself without anyone telling me what to do. From now on, I want to take care of myself at my own pace. It's the beginning of the new chapter of my life. You're actually terrible at cooking. My husband assumed that I didn't do the housework and hired a housekeeper because I took care of my appearance every day, even though the food he was eating was cooked by his own mother. He claimed that I prepared it instead of the housekeeper today. I was tempted to ask him if he had forgotten the taste of his home cooking, but he wouldn't have believed me, and that would have only made me feel vain. When I started to get fed up with my marriage, he came up with an even bigger problem. My name is Gabby, 28 years old. I'm a beauty influencer, a blogger, and a housewife. My 2-year-older husband, Matt, is the opposite of me. He is an associated professor at a well-known private university and is busy with his research every day. He even has to stay overnight when it was time for the senior thesis. I want to take good care of such a hard-working husband that I prepared healthy meals and make sure the clothes are neatly ironed. I try my best to create a comfortable living space. Matt was in the same club as me in high school. We started dating then. After graduating, he went to attend the university, and I got a job at my favorite cosmetic brand. He was a nerd who stayed away from girls in high school. I was attracted to his sincerity and seriousness as we spent time together in club activities, and I confessed my feeling to him. It was the first time a girl had ever asked him out, and he seemed to be intimidated, but he agreed. After that, I started to taking care of his look and giving him a haircut. My intuition was not to be underestimated. When I gave him a makeover, he looked very much to my liking. Of course, it wasn't just the outside that I liked. As we spent time together, I came to admire his knowledgeable and dependable side, and even liked his naive and out-of-touch attitude towards girls. Before we got married, he was crazy about me because I took very good care of my appearance compared to the other woman. "I'm so lucky to have met you," he used to tell me. I always replied that I was the luckiest, as I liked him for a long time. We were always happy with each other. But then he started to look down on me after we got married 2 years ago. "Honey, let's grow up, since we are married now." He looked at me with disdain. When I made mistakes doing the housework at the beginning of our marriage, I ironed his shirts in the wrong way and made creases and had the drainage clogged by not cleaning it. I was also not used to cooking and made numerous mistakes, but I made an effort and became good at it. I also believed I gave a truly comfortable home life to him as best as I could. He seemed to think I was still the same as when we were first married. "You should call my mom and have her show you how to do things," he blatantly suggested. "Call your mom? For what? Why? What else do I need to learn? Did I do something wrong? I don't mean it like that. But you don't change the way you look, even after we got married. I suppose you are not getting any better at housework and the food.
you buy ready-made somewhere and put it on a plate, right? Or have you hired a housekeeper? He plucked my nerves that I yelled at him for the first time. How could you say such things to me? I've been putting in my efforts. Do you think I'm just hanging around while you were at work? How dare you? He frowned at me and uttered, "Why do women get so emotional?" Then he walked out. I had never gotten temperamental with him before, so his comment made me wonder if he was comparing me with someone else. I tried to erase such a thought by reminding myself that he was too honest to cheat on me, and somehow suppressed my anxiety. The next day, my mother-in-law really came to our house, so I had to let her in. I was supposed to go out for blogging, but my plans completely fell through. She was a quiet and gentle person, so even if there was something wrong with the way I did my chores, she wasn't going to talk to me in a nasty way. I thought to myself as I offered a cup of tea with a forced smile. She had been scanning the room and said, "The room looks immaculate to the point it looks brand new." And then she looked astonished as she sipped her tea. "This is so nice. It tastes much better than the one in cafes. I'm glad you like it. Matt told me to learn how to take care of the house from you. I've been worried that I was going about it the wrong way." "I see. Shall we check together? Please, and let me know if I do anything wrong." I showed her how I ironed and had her check the toilet and bathroom. Matt asked me to come here and check only yesterday. I doubt that you can get everything so perfectly done if you did it in a rush. I can see that you take really good care of his work clothes too. What's wrong with him? Complaining about your amazing job. Maybe he's not satisfied with my cooking. I'll make lunch, so can you please stay and try it?" She watched me cook in the kitchen and praised me. "You are so efficient. So much better than me." She set up the table for me, and we sat down to eat. She exclaimed, "How delicious! Actually, when you were first married, Matt told me that you made a lot of mistakes. I can see you worked very hard." When she praised me, I felt the warmth in my heart and tears came up. "What's wrong?" "Sorry. I'm just happy to hear that. Matt never appraised my food, so I was worried that he didn't like it, even though I thought it was good." I'm finally assured. Once I started speaking out my feelings, my tears flowed freely. As an adult, it was embarrassing to cry in front of someone, but she spoke kind words to me again, which made me cry even more. "You are doing great. I know you're busy doing more than just being a housewife. You should take it easy. Other housewives are more hands-off. You are very hardworking and dedicated. You need to take a break when you can." She was so kind to me all the way, and even offered to scold Matt for me. I had never heard of a mother-in-law around me taking the wife's side and complained about her own son. I really thought I married into a nice family. Matt seemed to have been told off by his mother, and from then on, he never remarked about the chores. Apparently, he assumed that I was neglecting my housework because I had my nails done and spent time putting on makeup. My relief was short-lived. Hey, hon. It just doesn't make sense to me. I went to my friend's house the other day. His wife wore minimal makeup, and her hands were rough. She cooked wearing a used apron. But you keep your hair long and healthy, and your hands are well taken care of. Your apron always looks clean, and your makeup is perfect too. My mom says you are hardworking, but don't you actually have a housekeeper? Matt again brought back the subject. Oh my gosh! How long has your friend been married? About 5 years. What does his wife do? She is a waitress in an upscale restaurant. When I asked for more details, I found that the living condition was so different between them and us. Firstly, we lived in 2 bedrooms apartment, but to live in a 2-story house. The wife had a full-time job on top of taking care of the house. And the day Matt was there, she actually just got back from work and started cooking. No wonder she looked as he described. I was sure she wasn't allowed to put on tons of makeup to work. She must have had some washing and cleaning to do, both at work and home. So her hands naturally become dry. After 5 years of living like that, it would have been hard to keep a youthful look unless she decided to do so. I made my living writing beauty blogs, so I was just trying to look good as a job. I sighed in dismay at how simple-minded he was. You don't observe people at all, do ya? You go into great detail about your research, but you don't use your brain for anything else. What the hell? You, a high school graduate, put me with a master's degree down. You and I are on different levels. Don't you ever look down at me. How's our education level relevant to the subject? Yes, it is. You're ignorant that you dress up every day and pretend to do your chores. You're really just hanging around while I'm at work, aren't you? Do you seriously think so? I can't think of it any other way. You're not a celebrity. Even after the marriage, you stay looking immature with a flashy appearance. It's actually painful to watch. I know I'm not a celebrity, but look at my blog. I tried to show him my blog page and social media account, but he was annoyed and looked away. Then he insulted me with a terribly unpleasant tone of voice. Oh, right. You're still keeping the old hobby you used to do. My students seem to be into that kind of thing. Don't you feel ashamed being on the same level as them at almost 30 years old? His words shocked me beyond belief, and I turned off the screen. How could you say such a thing when you know I make a living with these? It's like a part-time job for a student, right? He saw my work before we were married and praised me. Wow, amazing. You are really talented. I couldn't understand how his admiration turned into such a spite. I was too hurt that I couldn't sleep and stayed up in the living room all night. Suddenly, my mother-in-law's gentle smile flashed in my mind. How could Matt be the son of such a kind mother? Maybe he took his stoic father's side. Those thoughts went on and on all night. I went into depression and couldn't do any work or chores from the next day. I half-heartedly served a bowl of cereal and coffee for breakfast in front of Matt, and went back to sleep until noon after he left. When I was awake, I had no motivation to do anything, not even watch TV.
I forced myself to take a walk, but it was just dull, so I went home and slept again. Matt came back and said to me, who didn't came out of bed,
See? I was right. My mom wouldn't have blamed me.
I had no energy to retort to his sarcasm. My mother-in-law came to check on me the next day.
Hi, Gabby. I'm really sorry about that idiot son of mine. He seemed to think he's right no matter what I say to him. Let me do some housework for you today. You take a rest.
She cheerily did the cleaning and laundry and even prepared dinner for us. I am very sorry to have bothered you. I couldn't say anything else but apologize to her. She just smiled and shrugged me off like it was nothing. When Matt ate the dinner, he smirked condescendingly at me and said,
So, this is your cooking, right? You really had a housekeeper prepare for food before, didn't you? You finally decide to make it on your own after I guessed it right. You are actually a terrible cook.
Even though I had no willpower, I couldn't ignore his comment. Apologize.
Excuse me?
I'm telling you to apologize for criticizing the food. You are the worst kind of person. Asshole. He was about to say something, but I couldn't stand to listen to another unpleasant word out of his mouth. I quickly grabbed my purse and got out of the apartment.
So nice to be a carefree housewife.
I was enraged hearing his voice behind me. Then I went to see my in-laws, who offered me to stay. Not only my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law was upset with Matt, and they apologized to me over and over. I couldn't help but wonder how such a twisted person could come out of these kind parents. Still, he was my husband, and I shouldn't have given up on him easily. With this thought, I went to discuss the matter with him at the university the next day. I had been there a few times to deliver the materials he had forgotten at home. Back then, his students poked fun at him, and he seems to be very uncomfortable that I started to make sure he didn't forget anything. I felt nostalgic as I walked towards his office, but on the way there, I saw him walking happily with a girl I didn't know. She looked to be around 20 years old, so she must have been his student. She looked around to check there was nobody and hang on to Matt's arm as she purred his name.
Careful! If anyone sees us.
Contrary to his words, he looked quite pleased. I should have kept my composure, but I found myself in front of them.
Wait a minute. What do you think you're doing?
Are you cheating on me? Matt was clearly annoyed with my appearance, but he proudly introduced the girl to me.
This is Rachel. She is a student here and is also in my workshop. I've been seeing her for 3 months now. I realized that I prefer a woman who is well educated and well spoken rather than a low educated one.
I never thought he would mess with his students. I was too shocked that I asked him an unnecessary question.
Does that mean you were having an affair? Oh my god, you're so slow. That's what I just told you. You see, Rachel, my wife is not very smart. There are so many brilliant minds in this university, and Rachel is one of the top students who are moving on to graduate school. She is a world away from an uneducated, caked-up hag like you. We're getting a divorce, ASAP.
He grimaced at me, but Rachel was turning white next to him. She seemed to be shaking as well.
What's wrong, sweetie? He noticed her unusual demeanor and asked her worriedly. We're done. Her teary eyes looked straight into Matt's as she proclaimed, What happened? Don't you get it? Your wife is a super famous influencer. What do you think would happen if she announces your adultery on her platforms? People would find out I was the mistress, and my life would be over then. She was looking white as a ghost and started apologizing furiously. I am very sorry. I had no idea he was your husband. I just wanted to have a fling. She looked terrible as she trembled, and her voice cracked and quavered. I smirked as I spoke to her. A fling, you say? If you were so smart, you should have calculated the risk of your fling. But it's good to know what happens if you messed with married men while you were young. It's better to experience this kind of failure at your age. It's easier to bounce back when you're young, you know? She made a jerking motion when I giggled. Don't worry. I'm not going to post about the affair and divorce. But I'll make sure you take responsibility. I wish you a good life. Yes, I'm really sorry. I'll break up with Matt, she declared, and left her contact details with me before she ran away. Then, the real deal started. Now, you and I should have a proper discussion about the future. Come to your parents' house after work. Let's discuss this at length, including your parents. I visited an office of a divorce lawyer before I headed back. I had prepared the necessary documents, so the consultation was smooth. All I had to do was wait for Matt to show up. When he finally arrived at the house at 9 p.m., his father yelled at him first. Matt, sit here. I have a lot to say to you. He looked frightened as he sat down, and his father continued. What the hell were you thinking? Having an affair? I am embarrassed to have you as a son. Moreover, you are so wrong about Gabby's work. She's making much more money than you. What? I showed my financial report to perplexed Matt. Here you go. This is from last month. I have some projects from big companies that pay a lot. And I am also active in video distribution now. So I am making a lot of money. It's more than double your salary, isn't it? I was making all this money and doing all the housework. No way! Your hands don't look rough at all. It's crazy looking like you and doing all the housework at the same time, isn't it? After being told the same thing over and over again, I was quite annoyed and thanked him sarcastically. Thank you for your compliments. You know, I'm a beauty influencer, so I'm super careful about how I look. I use rubber gloves when I wash dishes, and I have so many aprons that I can change every day. I watch what I eat and keep my skin and hair looking good. These things depend on what you eat. It's a false accusation to say that I don't do housework just because I look pretty without knowing anything about it. But my friend's wife, maybe she doesn't care about how she looks. She can't wear a tons of makeup when she works at an upscale restaurant anyway. Cleanliness comes first, so no accessorizing. In some restaurant, you must keep your hair long and be able to tie it back. You can't expect her to make an effort to improve her appearance. He became speechless. And we are not done talking about the affair. How could you fool around with your student? Don't you think that your behavior is more embarrassing than my appearance?
No, because she's smart and pretty. And most of all, she's dedicated and hardworking.
The moment he said that, his mother sighed and shook her head. The dedicated and hardworking person you like is exactly referring to Gabby. She works hard every day, perfecting her chores while working, with no time to rest. Didn't you notice yesterday? She was exhausted. So I cooked dinner, but you must have thought it tasted different.
Oh my god! That disgusting food? But that was Gabby. Disgusting? I cooked it. Do you have a poor taste bud? You grew up eating my food. But have you already forgotten? Well, that's how good Gabby must have been. Cooking doesn't improve overnight. You should acknowledge how much effort she puts in for you.
Matt slumped down and said nothing to retort. He must have finally realized he was wrong. But it was too late. Well, it seems we have discussed enough. Let's wrap up the family meeting now. I hired a divorce lawyer, so you will hear from him soon. Matt was flustered as soon as I pulled out on my lawyer's card. His parents were on my side and told him not to make any more trouble. Matt, be ready to pay a hefty sum of alimony on the grounds of adultery. Also, if you have any conscience left, don't even think about the division of property. You didn't help me with chores at all, but insulted me all the time, and have never cooperated as a couple. You have no right to my assets, I declared him.
I'm really sorry. It's all my fault. I'll never do it again.
You've been right all along. He grabbed my hands, but my mind was set. I told my in-laws that I was very grateful for their kindness and care. Thank you so much for everything. I tried to smile, but it was difficult to hold it as I held back my tears. The in-laws promised me that they would make sure Matt follows through his responsibility. I returned to my parents' house for the time being, and Matt and I started proceeding with an uncontested divorce soon after. I was able to receive 70% from property distribution. When I asked Rachel to pay $10,000 in compensation, she cried to her parents for help. As a result, she took a break from her study and was forced to get a job to pay off her debt on a monthly basis. She was told that if she wanted to go back to the university, she would have to pay off her debt to her parents first. Since Matt started living alone, his apartment became a dump, and he could no longer lead a decent life. His students laughed at his disheveled appearance. He couldn't concentrate on his research anymore, and his professors were disappointed with him. They said it's going to be tough for him to get a promotion. As for me, after the divorce was finalized and settled, I started living alone in the city. I feel relieved and carefree now that I only have to take care of myself. I will continue to improve myself in my work. I am determined to work harder now that I was single.
My name is Christine, a 41-year-old housewife. I met my husband Mark at work, and we got married. After 5 years of marriage, we finally had our son Jake, who is now 5 years old. He's so cute at this age. I would love to spend all day with him if I could, but our financial situation doesn't allow me to do so. I have to leave my son at a daycare center and work in order to help with our income.
Mommy, I want an omelette tomorrow.
A request from my adorable son. How could I not give him what he wants? Maybe Jake understands my busy schedule because he never requests a difficult meal. But it's probably just because I'm not a good cook. Elaborate dishes. But I honestly think omelets are pretty difficult to make. To be able to make them fluffy and perfect is truly a skill. But never mind that. I'm just making excuses for myself now. Mark was very happy when Jake was first born. He was, after all, our miracle after so many years of trying. We were a very close family, going on drives and outing to the park every weekend. But our family dynamics slowly started to change after Jake turned 3 years old. When Jake finally grew out of his terrible threes phase, Mark started coming home late more frequently. Even from before, he had been complaining about how he couldn't deal with Jake's fussy phase. Maybe that's why he was coming home late so often. Whenever he called to tell me that he was working overnight, I couldn't help but sigh and feel disappointed. The truth was, he was playing slot machines, killing time at a restaurant, at the cinema, and such. I know this because Mark's colleague told me. Since we met at work, his colleagues are also my ex-colleagues. I resigned after we got married and started working a part-time job. But I still keep in touch with my former colleagues. Obviously, Mark knows all of this. How can he think I won't find out? Part of me is bothered by all of this. But I would rather have Mark come home late than have to watch him be annoyed by Jake's fussiness. Because I never said anything, he started coming home even later and later. Sometimes even in the morning. Who does he think he is? Sometimes I could smell sweet perfume on his suit. It doesn't make me feel good. Of course, I feel angry at times. But Mark was a decent father when Jake wasn't being fussy, so I was able to turn a blind eye to his behavior. 2 years has passed since then. Jake has grown into an energetic and cheeky 5-year-old. I'm so in awe of Jake's growth. And at the same time, I am so fed up by Mark's bad attitude. Oh no! You spilled a bit of tea, sweetie. Wait here while I go get a cloth. What is wrong with you? You're 5-year-old now and still can't hold a cup properly? Mark gets annoyed and starts to yell whenever I try to deal with Jake's mistakes. Daddy, play with me. I'm busy. Don't bother me. Mark yells and refuses to play with Jake. Hey, about tonight's dinner? I don't need dinner. How can I peacefully eat dinner in such a chaotic environment? I don't even feel like eating your horribly cooked food. I'm eating out. Mark gets angry at anything I say. We should go somewhere on your next day off. Are you serious? I'm tired from work. Let me rest on my day off. No matter what I say, he just yells at me. We just can't seem to have a proper conversation. Is Mark still stuck in his fussy phase? He should have grown out of it 40 years ago. I once asked him why he was so angry all the time. And he got angry, as always, and said, "It's because you are useless, obviously. And you're passing that gene on to Jake." I wish he turned out more like me. What a horrible thing to say. Jake is both of ours. At least he has a handsome face like me. He was basically saying that all of Jake's good qualities are from him, until the bad qualities are from me. I just couldn't believe his audacity. My frustration with Mark continued to grow. His words and actions were causing me a lot of emotional pain. I was considering divorcing him too. He was one strike away from ending our marriage because of his behavior and lack of respect for our family. Yet, I stayed because I still had love for my husband. Even though Jake was scared of Mark, he still loved him too. I was so tired of being with my husband who was hardly ever in a good mood. But I didn't have the courage to break up our family. One day, my husband brought up something. What? A trip? Yes, with some colleagues from work. You know them, don't you? The ones I'm close to.
Oh, the two guys who were enjoying their single life?
Yeah, them. They're going on a trip together, so I decided to join them.
Seriously?
What's wrong with that? I've been patient for a long time. This family takes up all my time. I never had time for myself. And you spend all of the money I earn on useless luxuries. I have the right to relax once in a while. I am not spending any money on luxuries. We live so frugally since you only give me the bare minimum amount of money. This was the truth. I leave Jake at daycare and work. But the harder I work, and the more money I make, the less money Mark puts into our family. I actually put more into it than him, while he is probably playing around and spending whatever he has left. Otherwise, there is no way he could afford to pay for this trip. Shut up. I'm going away for a week from tomorrow, whether you like it or not. And you better not complain. Tomorrow? I was surprised about the trip in general, but was even more surprised that it was from tomorrow. I could feel my blood start to boil. I was about to argue back when I heard, "Mommy!" Jake, who was supposed to be sleeping, had woken up. I ran to him, flustered. "I'm sorry, Jake. Did I wake you up? Come on, let's go back to your room so Mommy can sleep with you." But the moment I touched his body to put him to sleep, I knew something was wrong. "Jake, your body is so hot." "Mommy, my head hurts." "Jake?" I looked at Jake's face, and the next moment, his eyes had rolled up and he collapsed. Panicked, I called an ambulance. Mark, who I naturally thought would accompany me, refused to come with us. There were so many things I wanted to say, but time was of the essence. I had no choice but to get into the ambulance alone. Thankfully, the test results showed that it was not a serious illness, but Jake was admitted to the hospital for more tests just in case. I called Mark to give him updates. "What do you want?" I can tell he's extremely annoyed, but I don't have time to worry about it. I explained to him what had happened and asked him to bring a change of clothes for the hospital stay. "Are you joking?" That was his response. He continued, "I can't make it." "What?" I said I can't make it. I don't want to be late for tomorrow's trip. So, I'm going to stay at my colleague's tonight. "Are you serious? Your son is in the hospital, and you're still going on a trip?" "Of course I am. He doesn't need me there for a simple checkup." "Jake is suffering from high fever." "So? There's nothing I can do." "Yes, there is. I asked you to..." "Oh, I have to go. I'll make sure to buy you a souvenir." No, wait! He hung up. Mark one-sidedly ended the conversation and hung up on me. I called him again, but it went to his voicemail immediately. You son of a bitch! You turned off your phone! Unfortunately, I didn't have his colleague's phone number. What an asshole! My anger echoed through the hospital. In the end, I called my parents and asked them to help me. I thought about Mark's behavior. He abandoned his son in the hospital. That's 2 strikes. The 3rd strike is just around the corner. I could feel it. 3 days later, the tests are over, and Jake is back to his usual energetic self. The results showed no problems, and he would be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. I planned to buy some pudding for him. I got up and turned my cell phone to check my messages. That's when it happened. My cell phone suddenly started vibrating. I almost dropped it, but I grabbed it in time to see that I was getting a call from a former colleague, Cindy. Hello? My former colleague's voice sounded panicked. Christine, where are you? Huh? I'm at the hospital. Never mind that. It's an emergency. Apparently, your husband died in an accident. I didn't know what she was talking about. Without thinking, I replied, What? This is a joke, right? But I continued to hear her voice on the other end of the phone, and I ran out in a panic. My husband had passed away. That fact alone was shocking. But my colleague continued. Apparently, Mark was on a trip alone with a woman, and the woman ran into the oncoming lane while driving and hit a tree. There had to be a misunderstanding. Mark was supposed to be traveling with his male colleagues. There was no way he was alone with a woman. There was no way he could have been killed in a car accident with the woman. It's not possible. It's not possible. In a panic, I called my parents and asked them to look after Jake. I rushed to the hospital where my husband was admitted. In the midst of my panic, I suddenly wondered why they called the company before me. Anyway, it seemed like it wasn't a lie, so I had to hurry. According to my former colleague, the men who were supposed to be with my husband were safe. Obviously, that's because they weren't together. Mark didn't even bother briefing them about his made-up alibi. He was with another woman. That's 3 strikes. 3 strikes and you're out. I wondered if he really died. I needed to verify the facts of this situation. Honey! A rattle opened the hospital room. There was only one person in the room, and it was undoubtedly Mark. The bandages wrapped around his hands and feet looked painful, but his chest was moving up and down. He was breathing. It seems like Cindy's information that he had passed away was wrong. Mark was alive. You're alive, I murmured, moving closer to him. When I looked at his face, I could see that his eyes were slightly open. It could have been my imagination, but he seemed a little shaken. Maybe he didn't think the company would contact me right away. My husband spat out in his usual grumpy tone.
Took you long enough. Your husband's been in an accident, and it takes you ages to get here. You useless piece of shit.
Well, good to see he is still his usual self. He looks pretty battered. But it seems he only broke his left hand and right leg. Apparently, the rental car was a wreck though. What a lucky guy. I'm glad you're okay. I tell him. To which he replies,
You better take good care of me.
Huh, he's definitely feeling fine. Good to know. Well, let's get to it, shall we? You may have escaped death, but you don't get a pass on 3 strikes. I took out a sheet of paper. When I say I'm glad you're okay, I'm talking about your right hand. If you had broken your right hand, you wouldn't be able to hold a pen to sign this.
What are you talking about?
I unfolded the paper in front of a very confused Mark.
Huh? What? Divorce papers?
Yes, I was preparing it, which is why I got here late. I know you're injured, so I'll just leave it here. Make sure you sign it.
You must be joking. Why would I sign this?
Well, you told your girlfriend you were getting a divorce, didn't you? The reason you came home late every night was because you were with her. Was this trip a prenuptial trip too? Good for you. Now you can marry your sweet Michelle.
How do you even know her name?
Because I spoke to her, obviously. In fact, before coming to Mark's hospital room, I stopped by the woman he was with room. She was also in the same hospital. I asked for the woman who was in a car accident and immediately found her. She had broken some bones as well, but she seemed better off than Mark. Her parents were also in the hospital room. I asked her to tell me everything. I couldn't tell her I was going to see Mark after this, so I had to talk to her without yet knowing whether he was dead or alive. But it became clear that he was alive. Even with her parents bombarding her with questions, she glared at me and said, "Let him go." I don't know what she sees in you. You are cold to your wife and kids. You don't pay your bills. You go out every night. You don't care when your kid is in the hospital. And the cheating. It's game over. My husband's face instantly turned pale. I had expected him to become defensive, but that didn't change my decision.
No. She's just for fun, you know. You're the only one I love.
Just stop. Here you go. I've filled out the form with my part. Even if you tear it up, I've got plenty of spares. In fact, why don't I just call a lawyer?
A lawyer?
That's right. We need to figure out alimony and child support. So, I think that will be better.
No, wait a second.
What did you say?
I mean, please, reconsider.
As soon as I gave the death glare to Mark, who was still speaking in a pompous tone, he suddenly shriveled up.
I don't want a divorce.
Why not? He stuttered.
Because...
Why don't I just say it for the both of us? I took a deep breath and said without stopping. Because I'm working and paying for everything. You can spend your money as you like. And pay to play around with young women. If you have children, you can make them take care of you in the future. And you can sit back and enjoy life while your wife does all the dirty housework. A wife at home for the security. And a girlfriend to have fun with. What a great life. But if you divorce me, that would all disappear, wouldn't it? Mark's mouth hung open, not knowing what to say. Did he lose his voice or what? No response. Sorry to have to tell you that your perfect life plan is now ruined. You can make a new life plan with Michelle or whoever you like. But my son and I will not be part of it. Just pretend you died and have a new life. I said everything I wanted to say. I turned to leave the hospital room.
Wait!
I heard my husband's pathetic voice over my shoulder, but kept walking. In the coming days, I hired a lawyer and started divorce proceedings. The discussion included Michelle, who was discharged from the hospital. When Mark said he had no intention of divorcing me, Michelle became absolutely livid. They got into a huge fight when I brought up alimony payment.
You've ruined my life.
I don't give a damn about a woman who hits on a married man.
You're the one who made a pass at me.
Shut up. I never did that. I thought to myself, can you just hurry up and sign the papers? I watched the two of them argue in silence. No matter how much Mark resisted, the evidence was all there. In the end, our divorce was official. I got almost all the alimony payment that I wanted. Child support was to be paid in one lump sum. After all the discussions were over, my lawyer and I left the room. But Mark and Michelle were still arguing. I wondered what would happen to their relationship after this. Actually, I don't really care. I told them, I hope you have a lovely life together, before leaving the room, which might have been petty.
I hope Jake doesn't take after my pettiness.
Despite all that had happened, Jake and I had returned to a peaceful life. Jake, who no longer had to worry about Mark's mood, had become surprisingly cheerful. Seeing this, I regretted not getting a divorce earlier. Mark's attitude must have caused my son so much pain. It was the same for me. How could I have clung to such a horrible husband? Living with just the two of us, I realized something. We were perfectly fine without Mark. In fact, every day is a joy. With that being said, Mark is still Jake's one and only father. If he wants to see him, I will let him. I asked him,
Do you want to see Daddy?
No, why? He replied. After the divorce was finalized, I sent Mark an email after confirming that the alimony and child support payments had been made. He replied instantly with the subject title, Help. I opened it and the message was laughable. Apparently, my former colleague had spread the story about his cheating to the whole company. Mark, stressed from all the painful stares and gossip, kept making mistakes at work. As a result, he had to leave the company. My parents have cut me off, and I have nowhere to go. I can't live like this. Please help me. Can you believe it? So, being the kind-hearted person that I am, I replied, Why don't you ask your sweet Michelle to help you? And guess what he said? I broke up with Michelle. Her parents cut her off too, and now she is missing. I can think clearly now. You are the only one that I love. You have to help me. Please, don't make me laugh. His messages still continued. I'm behind on my cell phone bill, and it's going to stop working tomorrow. Please, come and pick me up right away. I blocked him after that. We had long since moved, and Mark had no way of knowing where we were. As I put my phone on the table and sipped my tea, Jake came over and said,
What should we do on our day off tomorrow, Mommy?
I thought for a moment and said, How about I pack us some lunch? And we can go to the aquarium. A big smile erupted from Jake's face.
Yay! I want to go to the dolphin show.
Seeing my son so alive and excited, I couldn't help but smile.